All right. Well, welcome to the Young Lawyer Podcast. I'm happy to have you on. Can't wait to hear about your journey. Let's dive into how you started your legal journey.
Yeah, well, it's good to be on, Damon. And look, basically, I started my legal journey as a cleaner in Wollongong. My old man had a pretty successful cleaning and maintenance business, and he just said to me one day, "Look, mate, if you want to make heaps of money, get in a business, be a cleaner. But if you want to do something that you can do until you're 70 and exercise your brain muscle, then you should, reconsider what you're doing now and look long term." And ultimately, I did a bit of work experience with one of his work colleagues and eventually decided the law was the thing for me. But I guess even taking my first steps into the law, I knew that being a lawyer was never going to be enough. I always had a passion for business and probably why I ended up in insolvency first, because it's a very business related area of the law, and ultimately in running a small business and now a not so small business. So I guess that's the journey in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting choices between cleaning and law. Was there any other in between that? Like when you were deciding, oh no, I want to try something else other than cleaning, was there, or is it just straight law? And I guess what was it about the law that attracted you to it?
Well, look, it's funny. I always wanted to be an architect. I've been really, really good at math, and I loved art and creativity, but I just lacked spatial awareness. And when I started looking at, people I knew who were successful architects and reflecting on myself, I realized I probably didn't necessarily have all the skills to be a great architect. And so, look, yeah, just spent a lot of time just chatting to people and trying to figure out what would be meaningful for me. And I think the law it's very humanistic, and I love people, but it also gives you an opportunity to be involved in, at least as a commercial lawyer, the parts of people's commercial lives that maybe they are not equipped to deal with, or alternatively, the bits they really need a hand with. And I think that really drew me to the law as compared to some of the STEM based professions, which a lot of people in, I guess, my sort of natural skill set tend to gravitate towards.
Yeah, that's such an interesting point, and I don't think a lot of people realize that being a lawyer is actually a people person job. Like you're dealing with clients all the time. You got to be able to deal with them and handle their stresses, especially if they've got businesses and there's all sorts of things going on for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And other lawyers. It's a collegiate industry, and it's certainly not lost on me that we have a lot of peers in other sectors who definitely don't get all the benefits of legal practice. If you're an engineer, you might be out in the Pilbara working very long hours, and yeah, lawyers work hard, but we get to do it from the comfort of our spare rooms during COVID or from our offices. So it's a pretty good pick for a career for anyone, really.
Yeah, I completely agree. So when you were doing your law degree, were you working at the same time, or did you wait until after to start doing work experience, or how did that all unfold?
Yeah, look, I worked throughout my law degree, a whole bunch of jobs. So I worked as a law clerk and as a paralegal. I worked as a cleaner. A I worked at a pub. I worked at a golf club. I cleaned the shower block at a mine. So yeah, I did a lot of work. I mean, I've always been driven by what you do outside of education. And so I found, if I'm being completely honest, I found law school pretty underwhelming. Um, I didn't really get out of law school what I'd hoped. Certainly, I got more out of my practical legal training, more out of the time I spent, working as a law clerk and the time I spent being a grad than I did out of law school. And I guess that's maybe a reflection of the way I learn and the things that drive me. But yeah, I worked right the way through, and it's something that I look for when I'm looking for people to work with me. I like people who have a realistic view about the bits of law that are meaningful, and I think the bits of law that are truly meaningful are the bits you don't learn in law school. their customer service, their empathy, their care, their a natural desire and curiosity to learn and to argue and to develop things, which you know you don't get that in school.
Yeah, that's such a true point. And like I've heard it a number of times now saying, or a number of people saying, you do law school and then you get out into the real world and it's so different because, law school covers pretty much this much, but then you get the real world and you got contracts that just cover this much and you got no idea until you actually get the experience and build up.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah. So how did you find the transition from, I guess, going from a student to actually becoming a lawyer?
Can I say I found it both exciting and liberating, but hard. One of the things I commonly say, and I think I like saying it in public forums as often as possible, but being a lawyer is easy, but being a good lawyer is hard. And so transitioning from a student of the law to I guess, an always lifetime student of the law, but a practitioner of the law is a birthing exercise. You wake up one morning and you're one person, and then over a period of years and a lot of hard work and self-reflection, you give birth to a new lawyer, and out of that is where your new legal personality is born. So yeah, I liked it. It was tough, but I think being excellent at anything is tough. So if you're not struggling through those first couple of years of being a lawyer, you're probably not working hard enough.
Yeah, that's such an interesting way to put it because there is, there's always stuff to learn in this profession and you're never going to know everything. In saying that, as a lawyer or as you progress onwards to obviously being director, what setbacks have you faced along the journey? And what was your mindset, I guess, with dealing that, whether it be like applying for jobs, dealing with rejection, dealing with clients, those sorts of matters?
Yeah. Well, I guess, look, I'll preface it with I fully accept that, I'm a white male from a relatively middle class background. So in many respects, I haven't faced that many prejudices or challenges to get to the law. But, I went to public school in a regional city. I didn't have family that was connected to the profession. I didn't have someone connecting me to my first job in the law. I didn't have connections to, the law traditionally has been a very nepotistic industry, even if you look at the way lawyers used to be trained before the advent of modern law schools, through the articles process and so on. It was about who you knew just as much as about your talent and capacity to be a lawyer. So I've certainly had it a lot easier than lawyers before me. But yeah, I think the very economics of being a lawyer, there's, tens of thousands of law graduates and lawyers around, and distinguishing yourself from others can be hard. And yeah, rejection, I think applying for jobs and getting to know people and learning to network isn't always successful. And I think you just need to be optimistic. And certainly for me, I've always approached things I want with a level of tenacity and resilience. And I think, most people that approach problems like that in the same way tend to get the outcomes they deserve.
Yeah, that's so true. And now, like as an employer, I guess, what advice can you give to someone who is seeking an employment in, I guess, the current state, and what can someone do to stand out amongst the crowd?
Yeah. Well, I guess without plugging our firm or our values or anything like that, we spend a lot of time thinking about what us means. So, what we do for the client, what clients expect of us, our relationship. So, um, when I meet someone, whether they're applying as a grad or at any level or role in our organization, I think about how they're going to help us as an organization be closer to our clients. So people skills are really important. The capacity to develop enduring relationships and an ability to be creative are all really important, because um, so much of law is going by the way of automated processing, going by the way of productivity tools, going by the way of process outsourcing to cheaper jurisdictions. And I think much like the intellectual property sector before it, with patent attorneys and trademark attorneys and so on, a shift towards an increased level of professionalism and creativity and expertness is where I see the role of the lawyer going. So I look for qualities in people that I guess push them towards one of the extremes of one of those particular characteristics.
I guess really the only question I have from that is like, how does, I guess, say you put out a job ad, how does someone show you that? Do they connect to you by LinkedIn, or are they just on LinkedIn, networking, discussing with people, or like, how do they stand out without actually, I guess, knowing what their work is like and knowing how they deal with people?
Well, it's funny. It's funny you say that. I think in much the same way that we all have very different personalities and we all exhibit our strengths and weaknesses in our own unique way. I don't think it's any one particular thing. So I wish I could say, oh, if you reach out to a partner or director of a law firm on LinkedIn and you're heaps excited, you're definitely going to get the job. Because for some people, that's a very interesting and exciting way to get your foot in the door. But, you know, being honest about your experience and your resume, I find even providing some editorial commentary and providing, maybe having the confidence to let people know what you think you've genuinely learned in your job, rather than just listing buzzwords about, the various things you expect to see in a resume. I mean, when I look at a resume, I look for people who have done retail. If I see someone who is, in their third year of law school and they've worked in retail since they're 15 years old, and that they're just resilient, they've had someone give them a hard time about too many pickles on the cheeseburger, so to speak. I've got a great respect for that. So I don't think it's any one particular thing, but being honest, and you will eventually find the right workplace. I mean, graduate lawyers are incredibly employable, even if they don't immediately find work in the private sector of the private practice of law. So you just have to find roles that are right for you and be confident in reaching out and grabbing them.
Yeah, that's such an interesting point. I never actually thought of like, oh, if they've got retail experience, they've obviously been and dealt with a lot. And that's such an interesting topic, I guess, because majority of people, majority might not have work experience in a law firm, so that's definitely an incentive for, I guess, other people to put all characteristics that they've dealt with and have developed over the years into their resume to actually try and stand out.
Well, look, Damon, if I can be really, really blunt, I see a lot of experience from people at law firms, and sometimes that detracts from my views of them, because I might have pre-existing prejudices about the quality or style of work a law firm does, which may or may not be true. Whereas if someone just says, hey, I've been a salesman at Bing Lee whilst I've been at university, I've been doing university part-time, I've got one kid, this is my experience in life. And also, in the context of working 40 hours, I managed to do pretty well, and I can hold up to some psychological profiling and a hairy question about contract law, then they're going to be a fantastic insolvency lawyer.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's interesting. I guess the question as well that I've been asking employers is, there's a lot of weight put on what uni the person goes to anymore, or is that kind of slowly disappearing?
Well, look, I went to University of Wollongong. I think most of our senior leadership team, didn't attend a sandstone university, and those that did, they appreciate the experience, but I wouldn't say those particular individuals put any weight on that over anything else. I think we're very lucky in Australia. It's a very meritocratic society, and I think that has slowly bled into law. So, if you're passionate and you're good and you're creative and you've got a desire to learn, then I don't think anyone cares.
Yeah,
Certainly we don't.
Yeah, that's such a good insight too. So for any young lawyers out there, it doesn't matter where you go, just get your degree, get the experience, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Now let's have a bit of a chat about your podcast. You want to give the listeners a bit of, I guess, an introduction into that, and I guess tell us all about that one.
Yeah, look, thanks for letting me plug the video project. So, yeah, it's a video project, it's a podcast, it's an Instagram thing. Basically, I just sit down and I tell people what I think about coffee. I share a song I like working to, and tell them a bit about bankruptcy. And yeah, I guess it's three of my favorite things in life, and I thought I'd just share it with people and I guess try to break down some of the barriers, particularly for young people. I think people forget that uh, personal financial distress is predominantly driven in Australia by poor financial habits and a lack of financial literacy. Most personal insolvencies and bankruptcies are driven by retail credit, whether that's predatory lending for those that are financially distressed, or really just a lot of young people with a lot of credit card debt, and people with poor advice and poor habits. And I think trying to break down the barriers to let people know that you can understand what your options are and you can learn about bankruptcy, and it can be fun. It doesn't have to be a thing for old people and lawyers in oversized grey suits.
Yeah, so true. And for all those listeners, Beans, Beats, and Bankruptcy.
That's the one.
That's the one. Check it out. All right. I guess my final question is, what advice would you give to someone who wants to join the legal profession?
Oh, it's a tough question. If you want to join the legal profession, don't worry about what type of law you think you're going to like. Don't worry about what firm you want to work at. Don't focus on the money. Think about what type of person you want to end up after a period of introspection and hard work. I think, as I said earlier, becoming a lawyer changes you, and the change that it manifests is wholly within your control. And you don't want to let a poor workplace or bad experiences get in the way of you becoming an awesome lawyer. So I would say think about the person you want to be from five years from now, and let the process of entering the legal profession help you manifest that.
Yeah, that's such a good perspective to have on joining the legal profession. And that's, yeah, great advice. That's all the questions I really had for this. Thank you so much for joining me on it. It was great to chat to you.
Oh, mate, thanks for having us. And thanks to all the listeners.
All right.